Hey, Spectre Senence here, and I want to do a different video for the first time. This is something that if you are checking out the title of this video, if you've been a part of our studio before, you know that we do a lot of games. If you're stumbling on us for the first time, this is pretty much what Spectre Studio really does quite a bit of, is we cover games, battle reports, some unboxing, some painting, just general reviews, anything that really covers the aspect of the games. Now, if you've been kind of checking on our video, you're going to see that there's been a lot of different games that are starting to show up for our reports. And I want to give people an opportunity not only to really look at the expansions of gaming, because it's really starting to take off now. It's an opportunity for yourself to look into these games and get into it. I feel like there's a lot of videos out there, but lately there hasn't been anything that really kind of tells parents to kids or new gamers that if you really got into it, you've got friends that are into it, you're not really sure how to do it. I want to kind of go over the way to get into some of these games and their availability and the cost, because this is a hobby, and for some people it can be an inexpensive hobby for a quick little afternoon game, or it can really get really expensive. And don't show this one to the wife, because she'll realize there's a lot of money going into this. I'm kidding, she married me and she quite understands. But there's a real big expense to some of this, so it's not just for everybody. And I want to go over each of the games that I think are pretty popular and are out there on the market right now. There's definitely a lot more on their way, but we're going to go with some of the general senses that are pretty much out right now. Now, I'm not going to rate these games into basically saying that this is the best game or this is the worst game, because each of the games features their own unique assets that you can look for in a game if you want to do it. Now I'm going to go off a batch of 3 games, and these games are basically set for accessibility. They are pretty much low cost, and they should pretty much come with people who are looking to get into gaming but unsure if they really like miniature wargaming. So we're going to go over these games, and let's start with these first 3. So the first game I'm going to put out there right now is HeroClix. Now, HeroClix is a very popular game amongst a lot of gamers because of several factions. One, they're pretty much based on a lot of things that you pretty much love. They're based on the DC comic world, Marvel comic world. They have been starting to venture into video games. They have done spaceships, like the Star Trek series and such. So there really isn't much out there that WizKids hasn't put out for HeroClix that you probably could get into. A lot of the new movies that are coming out, a lot of the new, any of the comic book, let's say, themes that are kind of going on, such as Fear itself, things like that. HeroClix will basically cover it. They'll have figures out for that. This has been going on for quite a while now, and a lot of people enjoy this game because it's a very simple game to pick up. There's a set of powers that are basically will be defined through the character that you're using, depending on whoever he is. That pretty much will make up what you're kind of used to knowing from either movie or comic book, whatever. And you'll move the figure around on these basically fold out sheets. And basically you can see some elaborate picks that I'm showing up right now. But this is pretty much some of the things you can basically do. Uses only 6-sided dice, so rolling 2 of them will get you a hit or miss depending on your value of the math from the skill set of the character. But it's pretty simple, and the figures all come pre-painted and pre-assembled. You don't really have to do a lot, and there's a lot of different scales for a lot of them, as you can see, like with Galactus here. So it's very, very simple, very easy, and it can really answer a lot of those age-old questions, you know, DC versus Marvel, or what would happen if you basically take Halo and have to deal with the X-Men. These are the things that HeroClix basically offers. So it's a really fun, enjoyable system that you can dive right into. It doesn't take much to collect because basically you get a starter set, there you go. You can play with it as much as you want. You can expand your collection as fast or as little as you want. It's pretty easy to pretty much get into, and most shops are carrying these figures, and they run tournaments, and it's very, very popular and very successful. So that's one game that you can dive right into for accessibility, and it's pretty much for every age. Now the second one that I have is one of ours that are getting very popular here, that we really want to get into and really pushing. It's a hybrid game which means it's kind of like able to play for two factions, and that game is Dust. And for those that know this system, what you get basically is a very condensed, quicker game, which is Dust Tactics, which, as I mentioned, for HeroClix plays very similar. You can have a a tile mat down that the figures basically move in the squares and can attack from that aspect there. But the figures can also be transcended to a warfare state. So this is a pretty good value when you talk about you can do a quick tabletop game, a board game type of style, or a much more larger miniature game using the more elaborate systems for some of the other games that I'll be mentioning. And these squads basically go into that. So you have 2 games out of 1 box for what you're getting for out of Dust, as in Dust Tactics to Dust Warfare. The figures themselves are pretty much mostly assembled. Some of the vehicles will require some pieces to be attached like that, but most of them are there, as far as I've seen, are all snapped together. You don't really need a lot of glue, and all the figures come based depending on what are the theme. There are 3: the Allies, the Axis, and the SSU. So they're all pre-based to a color scheme to those factions, much like your old toy army men that you used to dig out and play in the old sandbox. So very simple. The systems for both type of games are also very simple and accessible, and I find that the cost for most of that stuff is pretty much down. It's about, I've seen $80 to around for the revised starter core set to get started, and then you're spending around $15 to $40 for any other additional pieces that you want to add into that, with like the walkers to the troops and of that sort. So really, once you start getting those units, the games start to escalate very large, and you can really get into it and really enjoy that. Here at Spectre Studios, we're a big fan of Dust, and we're hoping that you guys are following us because of that, because we really enjoy those bat reps that we're doing, and we plan on doing a lot more. Now, the next quick accessible game is a hugely popular game, and not to mention because it's based on a very huge theme, and that is X-Wing's miniature games. So the Star Wars universe has come forefront, but the X-Wing miniature game is a really awesome game. We are very close, before I put this video up, to actually giving away this game. So amongst this video that you're enjoying, you have a chance to be our 100 subscriber contest that we're basing this around. And if we get to that mark, we're giving this game out to one of you lucky subscribers. And this is a $40 set. So we talk about quick accessibility. And that comes with 3 ships, 1 Rebel, 2 Imperial TIE Fighters. And that's pretty much a quick little game you got going on. There's a few scenarios in the set, and you can really kind of expand that. It's about $15 per every small ship that basically is out there. The much larger ships are $30, and there is another set coming out with some much larger Rebel ships with that are also coming out as well. So those are a little expensive, but not necessarily these are things that you need. It doesn't take much. And this game is hugely popular because not only you're getting beautifully painted ships like the movies, they come all pre-assembled for you. You basically take them out, put them on the little flight stand, and they're ready to go. And this game is really up there for me in terms of how awesome and accessible it is, because if you were to go to, you want to say, hey, I want to get into a game, I want to compete versus people, I want to go, all the way to the top to the World Tournament, which Fantasy Flight basically hosts for this game. You could get this core set for $40, get the dice, learn the rules, get the templates, and literally for 3 more ships, $45 more, you basically have a set that went to the world title. That is the Rebel that basically won it, if you haven't seen that, which was 2 X-Wings, 2 B-Wings, 4 ships, they won it all. The offhand for the Imperials, which is the TIE Swarms, was 7 ships, and it's the older ships. So there you go. I mean, it's a very quick and easy game to get into. We really enjoy it. You've seen a lot of videos from us about it, and we've brought a lot of subscribers because of that. And like I said, subscribe now if you're catching this video, because you have a chance before this video comes out and we haven't hit 100 yet, you have a chance to actually win this $40 game, and it is awesome. I can't say much more about it. So check that out and really get involved with it, because you're going to see a lot of those videos here for Spectre Studios. Now, the next games I want to kind of go over are a different set of games. I do not play these games, but I do know that they've been out there and they have their popularity to it. They're much more epic scale, and what I mean epic scale means their figures are smaller that you're going to basically be, but they're representing much larger scale miniatures. The first one is one that's been out there for a bit, is Firestorm Armada. I know that's gone through a couple of revisions. It's basically $135 to get a starter set. For, of course, starter sets are 2 factions that you have with that, and it goes around $17 to $32 I found for some of their different ships, going up to about $66 for like a faction, a little bit of a fleet set. Basically spaceships going out and battling. There's a number of little factions for you to do that. It looks to be pretty enjoyable in game. I've seen some popularity with that, since some other companies have kind of like not really pushed what they've had established. So Firestorm Armada seems to be the real starship world with our which are much larger ships. Where X-Wing is more dogfighting, this is more like larger battleships and aircraft carriers and space stations and stuff like that. This company and this game, Firestorm Armada, pretty much give you that opportunity to play of those ships for that, and a relatively good price tag. The ships on these are going to now require you to assemble and paint. These are no longer, the next game that I'm kind of mentioning are going to be miniatures that you basically can just pick out of the box and pick up and play. These ones do require assembly and some work to get going, so be a little bit wary of that. The second game is a new game that is got itself going. This guy really devoted himself to making it, and it's gotten a lot of popularity. Is Drop Zone Commander. Now, this set is a little bit more accessible than Firestorm Armada because of the terrain. Now, where a lot of the other games pretty much, again, you have some quick fold-out things that you can basically get into, Firestorm Armada is really on your tabletop you can do, but Drop Zone Commander comes with a nice, interesting terrain setup for a starter set. I really have an appeal to this. Now, I haven't got it yet. It's on the bubble type of thing. We're not really sure how we feel about Spectre Studios fully, but basically you have a very large battle mat. You have buildings that you'll put on these that are nice hard cardboard buildings, but because it's a larger epic scale, they work very nicely to give you some big tall skyscrapers and stuff like that. The set comes with that. There's another box set that they have here, Cityscape, that you can add on top of that. So you can pretty much use a very huge epic scale battle with these factions going on that. And I really think that's cool. The starter set runs $95, so pretty much a good $100 set, but it's really, really set for you to kind of go. I think I have the additional Cityscape like $45 more. So for $150, you got a pretty amazing setup that you can basically get going on with that. And most of the other models are going about $15 because it's epic scale, much smaller models, and good plastic, cheap, affordable prices. So that really makes it for an appeal. You do have to paint these figs. They do not come pre-painted or pre-base, so you will have a little bit of working with that. But the material for these should be pretty accessible. Now, we've got a bunch of new other games that we're going to kind of go over. Some have been around for a long time, whatever. But these are going to be much more time-intensive games, much more expensive, and they have a lot of different factions going with it. We'll start really small because this game that I'm going to introduce, Dark Potential, was something that was kind of put out there from a very popular YouTube channel called Mini Wargaming. And they pretty much wanted to do some minis on Indiegogo, turned it into a full game, and was able to put out 3 factions that you can see right here. Now, they're about $50 a piece, but the rule sets is actually in beta. It's not really an official game system to kind of go out, but I want to put out there because Mini Wargaming is a very, very popular channel. This is a pretty cool game. It's a small skirmish game, so it's quick and easy to kind of get into. But with the pewter pieces, $50, you're gonna get a good amount to start. You are gonna need a little bit more, so it's about $100, $150 to get really some extra figs to really get into something bigger in the Dark Potential style. But the real problematic comes to Dark Potential is the terrain. Dark Potential requires you to have a lot of terrain. If there's a lot of open space on your table, you're not going to have much of an enjoyment out of this game. It's very, very difficult to play because Dark Potential has a different mechanic than a lot of games that have very limited range. They're pretty much with the physics of, you know, this is the future, and we obviously can hit things from a much more distance if you look at the real scale of figures, which is awesome. I really like their idea behind a lot of it. So you got to be kind of wary of not having a lot of terrain to play this game. So it's definitely an up and coming. It's been on hiatus for a little bit, but it still has some appeal if you're looking for something kind of neat. But just be wary to have a lot of enjoyment of what you're going to need for a resource for that. Another game system that's coming is now going on its second edition. I have played the first edition. We are going to be putting this on Spectre Studios as I get a hold of the second edition for us. Is Weird's Malifaux system. So this is an interesting game because it uses decks of cards instead of dice. It's also pretty accessible because it is low model count. And what I mean by low model count is you don't really have a lot of models that you need to play this game. It's based around a crew. So there's usually around 3 to probably 7 to 8 other models on the table that you're pretty much going to have. Not much more than that. So pretty easy to get this game going and playing good solid games from them. And you'll add a figure here and there, I'm sure, because the collection of this stuff is amazing. But again, I mean, you don't have to invest a lot more into that. The rule book is going about $40, $50 per crew, and then you're going to spend like $8 to $32 on individual figs ranging from small to large. There's a lot of different crews out there to also get, so there's a lot of diversity in this, and each of the crews have about 2 to 4 different what they call casters to really lead them. So it's a really different game. It's definitely very interesting. I like the card mechanic, and like I said, you'll be able to see a lot more of that here on Spectre Studios. Now, this group I'm going to get into is pretty much a company that's been using a lot of Kickstarter, but I feel that they're going into a niche into one of the other companies that I'll talk into. So some of the stuff that I'm going to be posting is because of what they're able to get their niche out of from another company later. But that's Mantic Games, and Mantic Game has had some miniatures, basically Warpath and Fantasy, that play. They're a little smaller in scale, I think, compared to the other company that I talk about, Games Workshop. But they play very similar. They have a different they have some factions, not as many, but they're very nice models. They're very good sculpt. It's very affordable. A lot of their games, pretty much starter sets, run about $75. So you have Warpath, you have Kings of War that play into the futuristic and fantasy aspect of that. But very good models. I've seen a number of these, and you can see some of them here that are pretty sharp and pretty easy to get a hold of. What I like about Mantic Games is not this tabletop version of it, because it's definitely different. I feel it's good, but I haven't quite really delved too much into that system a lot. But some of the Mantic stuff that we're looking at is like Dreadball, Dead Zone, are games that Mantic is really pushing out that have a lot more interesting flair to it. Dreadball is a futuristic sports game. There's a lot of races for this game set, and it is really, really affordable. Around $60 to really $80, I think, to really get the starter set for the rule book, the pitch, the cards, and all the dice and all that stuff like that. But they're basically, for anyone who wants to get into it, it's like $20 for a team, $20 more for a booster group, and then they're like $8 MVPs that get added to this. So I really, really like that. Dreadball is coming to Spectre Studios. By the time this video is kind of like has a chance to sit around, you'll get to see a lot more of that. The other thing, Dead Zone, is more of another, not their big Warpath version. So these are the smaller groups that will be playing some pretty some interesting scenarios where like they were saying the Rebel version isn't going to play like their Enforcer version because they have two objective type of ideas. They're different type of armies, where the Enforcers want to control and make sure that there's no problems going on and eliminate enemies that kind of sprout up. The Rebels are more interested about getting supplies, food, weapons, stuff like that, and don't want to get in a firefight with the Enforcers. So they're going to have a different type of mechanic that scores them victory points. I think that's very interesting, and we could be seeing Dead Zone come to Spectre Studios as well. If you guys are interested in that, comment below. Let us know. All right, so I'm going to go up the ladder here for a little bit in terms of what's been around and it's been established. So this company, Privateer Press, has a very, very super popular game, which is War Machines and Hordes. War Machines, more of the steampunk version of their world, compared to Hordes, which is more of the primitive aspect. But the cool thing about this system is their future and fantasy, their future and more primitive aspect of their factions can fight in the same formatted battle system of rules. So if you kind of like the steampunk era of jacks that these machines and all that stuff have, and you have a friend or relative that plays that likes the primitive casting of beasts and monsters and stuff like that, these two system factions can work. It's been nicknamed Warmal Hordes, but that's pretty much what you can basically do. The starter set's about $100 for each of the two. For War Machine, that happens with basically two War Machine factions, and then Hordes, that comes with two Hordes. It's about $50 for a starter box, and then you're running $10 to $40 compared to some of the figs. There are even greater scale, these Colossuses, which are much more, but are very big to that. This is a very competitive gaming system. I feel it can be very challenging for new players. So that's, for perk wise, you got to be a little bit wary, because this is a unforgiving game system, but it's challenging. I mean, the models are very, very nice. You're gonna have to assemble them. They're very, some are delicate, but they're well sculpted. You got to get them, put together. You can see some of the army builds that we have up on our studio, but it's kind of like, to me, a Magic of the Gathering card game in miniature format, where there's combos that once you get those figures put together, it's up to you to put them on the table and deliver that combo, that aspect. Now, it's not always a win. It's a rock paper scissors type of format. When you set something up for one thing, be prepared, because another faction that you run into can have a complete counter to that. So it's very challenging. It's a difficult game to master, but there's definitely a lot of fun aspects to it. If you don't want to get into the tournament set, there's a lot of models out there, a lot of characters that lead these forces and stuff. So, and there's even more coming. So this is really, really a very diverse system. Privateer Press has been out there, and they're doing a really good job. It's a very enjoyable system, but it can start to, you can play small with this. I like this. It doesn't take much to get something going on, but you'll soon find yourself at the mercy of people who have invested, so you have to be very wary of that getting into this game. But I think it's still very enjoyable if you want to try to really start getting into the competitive, much more challenging miniature system. This is definitely a good staging for that. Now the next one is Games Workshop. It's got to be the big daddy of them all. If you've been doing anything with miniature wargaming, you have had to have heard Games Workshop, or you've been living under a rock. They're the big mother of all, and this is probably the most challenging and most expensive of these games to get into. Mostly for either the fantasy or the 40K set that you have here, you're pretty much looking at another $100 to get into. Now, you're kind of like, it seems like where everybody else is, and yes, you're right. This is probably Games Workshop's best value to get into, because you're basically getting two armies. They're usually pretty good start, but they're never really solid. It's another one of those, this is a system of resources. If you are not getting the next unit as the codexes release and stuff like that, you're going to find a very difficult game to really play. It's not, you can't really just put something out there and have too much fun with it, when there are really out there some pretty competitive list and armies that really can do some hurting on you because of the way the system is made. It's a very fluffy game, and what I mean about fluffy to you is it's really story driven. There are some very high challenges where the points don't seem like they match up, so you have to be kind of understanding of that, where one race's points don't seem to be understanding to another race's, and you're going to have to deal with the fact that if you're going to a hobby shop to play, that you could really get rolled over pretty quickly in this game. Now, having said that, this game is deep. There are many races for your armies to play in both fantasy and 40k. The models are the best. They are outstanding. The plastic models where this company has really gone to are just over the top. They have really put a lot of effort into layering these things so you can do quite a bit of work with and make the transition awesome. These are also, the models there are also not for the novice though, that's the thing. It's a very difficult game for entry level now. When I started back, way back, the models were very blocky, but if you look back, they were accessible. The old goth orcs with their bolt gun and their axe with their little squat sitting down type of pose, and the statue space marines made it very simple to kind of pick these up and go. The fantasy models were just standing in line, and all you had to do was glue a shield to them. So those days are pretty much gone. The Vengeance set is not as bad because the models are a little easier, but they still do require some putting together. But a lot of veteran gamers don't like it as much because there's no flexibility to it if you look at the other sets. And that's the real issue with this system, is the fact that you're going to need those other sets, and the difference between the models are jumping leaps and bounds, where you're going to be putting the front to the back torso together, posing the arm with the gun in one direction, with the shoulder pads to the feet, the legs, the base, all the additional pieces that these guys will have as well. There's quite a bit, and the vehicles and stuff like that are multi-layered pieces that you can see some in my unboxing for this company. So it's challenging, and the price tags of some of this stuff can be really big, and that's like $20 for a single figure that you're getting, all the way up into almost to like $80–90 for additional pieces. And then you got some of these crazy things that are coming over the top from a company called Forge World that puts resin metals out there that literally can reach the price tag of all the way up to $1,000. Yeah, I have been playing this game for a long time. My collections have been very vast. I didn't have to pay that type of money when I first started with that, but yet as the new codexes come out, you're usually seeing newer models, new units, and that price tag continues to go up for those. And it's tough. A starter type of really army where you're looking at like 1,500 points is the norm for this company, can easily run you up into the $400 to $600 easy just to get started. And that's basically getting a hold of this stuff unpainted, unput together. So there's a lot of time and effort in this hobby. It's massive. I don't recommend it for new people, and for a lot of the fact of the matter, my brother, who started way back with us now, he's kind of looking into a bit. If you can get a pre-owned army, someone who wants to get unload of it, it's very common in this industry. I advise you to do that to get into it, so you really understand what you're getting into, because this is an ultra competitive type of field, and it takes a bit to get into this. But once you really get your feet into this company, you're gonna have a hard time saying I don't want to, I don't want to do it anymore, because the models are beautiful, they're wonderful, and when you start putting them on battles like this, be prepared to to really enjoy yourself, because it is fun. Terrain though is a challenge. You're gonna have to really have a lot of terrain and tables. There are a number of places you can get some cheaper stuff, but again, it's a lot of work. When you see the bat reps on this channel here, it's quite a bit of effort to get those tables that I basically have coated and layered, and then the buildings that we put in, plus the trees and all the stuff like that. So challenging game, but it is very rewarding if you want it, but it is a lot of money. So definitely, it's definitely worth that type of investment. So that's my top list of games that have been out there for some popularity things. I hope you do enjoy this. I know there are a lot of other games that are coming up. There's some games that I know that are on Kickstarter. I can definitely go back into review some of those down the road. And if you're interested, let us know. Comment below. But I hope you guys take this video and take a chance to look at it. There are a few games that I put on here that are not being played by Spectre Studio and any of the Spectres. If that's something that you guys would all really want to change, comment below. If I see enough comments from people who want to see Drop Zone Commander on our channel, then that's all I need to see is do that, and I'll invest in it. I'm a diehard gamer, and I have no problem buying games if that helps you guys subscribe to our channel and be entertained, because that's what we're here for, and we'll get into that. Some of these games I have mentioned, like for Mantic, there's a couple systems there. They are on their way. Be prepared. There is one more game I think I almost forgot. I didn't put it on because it was a little bit of a different. Is Infinity. I just fully got that. I have just picked up the $50 rule book. I have now a small starter set, which cost me another $50 to get into that. They're very, very highly delicate pieces. I do not recommend that for entry-level players. So it's kind of why I didn't really have it on the first earlier part, because these are very, very delicate, thin pieces. Will take a little bit of work to put together. The pieces are so well detailed. It takes some very good effort to paint. I'm a pretty decent painter. Of course, Spectre Ames is our best painter. We'll see what we can do with a little bit of work with him. But it's something that is we want to get playing. The model count is also very low, so it does have that accessibility. But again, terrain is on the high. This is one of those games that you need a ton of terrain, because line of sight is key. If it sees you have too much line of sight, not as going to be as much of an enjoyable game. But that is something that is also on the way to Spectre Studio. I know myself and Spectre Wild now have starter factions. We just got to get them up and painted, and then we'll try to get you guys a battle report with that. But a lot of those other games that you've basically seen, let us know if you enjoy these games more, and what games you want to see in our bat reps. Like I said, it's a little bit of a long ending, but I want to give you guys an opportunity to put a format out there that will want you guys to watch us. If you've just stumbled on this for the first time, our channel from this video, subscribe to it and let us know what games that I've mentioned that you want to see us play, because we'll get into it. And I'm sure there'll be more on the Kickstarter way, so let us know that too, and we'll do what we can to try to give you those type of games and entertainment. Thank you again. This is Spectre Senence, and subscribe to our channel. And we're almost there to our 100 subscribers, and giving one of these games that I mentioned, X-Wing, away. So keep playing games with us.